it goes back really to the Franco-Prussian War of 1870, and in particular the agreement after the Treaty of Frankfurt, during which Germany put really severe restrictions and conditions upon the French. The French had to pay, it was 5 billion francs to Germany, and Germany insisted on taking the borderlands of Alsace and Lorraine for themselves. Now, Alsace and Lorraine had changed in the past between who controlled it, but France had controlled it for a long time. It was an important border countries because that was a traditional invasion route through between Germany and France, and Germany wanted it as a buffer against French invasion. That was the biggest problem because they treated it as a military buffer zone, and so the people of Alsace and Lorraine resented this. They tried to change it shortly before the First World War, but it's too late by then. So this stuck with France. They wanted Alsace and Lorraine back, so they spent pretty much 40 years trying to form alliances to surround Germany, to start a war again, for them to retrieve Alsace and Lorraine back into the French nation, which was what was behind all that happened. Because separate wars are not isolated. History does not stop and start; it flows, and so any event in history is the result of what happened before, and it's the cause of what happens afterwards. So really, rather than treating them separately, there is like a kind of super conflict going from 1870 to 1945 as one conflict, which you could call something like the wars of the formation of Germany. And in 1870 they were still not unified, but shortly after that they became unified, and that was the birth of Germany. But the border dispute was what started off the warfare between 1870 and eventually right through to 1945 as a series of interconnected conflicts. It contributed a lot because it was nothing like today's geography, and it's very different. It was largely split into several empires, and there are like 3 types of empire. There's the mature solid empire, like the British Empire and French Empire, and then there was a series of old decaying empires, the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Ottoman Empire, which were in their last throes and had been longer than they were decaying. So that created a paranoia, particularly from Austria-Hungary, who was afraid of their empire falling apart, as was the Ottoman Empire. And there was mistrust between all the different political leaders. But the democracy was not the same then as it is now. Many of the countries only had semi-democracy at the best, and so it was down to the paranoia of leaders, basically, which led through to the World War, as they were all eager to get to each other. France, of course, wanted Alsace and Lorraine back. Britain, I think, wanted the war because it wanted to confront the German Navy. Britain had been the #1 naval power for a long time, but they then had a rival within the ever-growing German Navy, and I think these sort of things would never be recorded, they wouldn't be written down, but I think behind it is a desire to confront the German Navy, to give Britain their #1 position in the maritime world again. So it was like mutual paranoia by that time, with France trying to surround Germany, which is why we had that France-Russia pact, that if either of them were attacked, the other one would come to their rescue. It was an attempt to surround Germany, so that they had to fight on two different fronts. That played a big role. I mean, to go to the wider context, the modern nation state is very modern production. Previously, throughout most of history, states were small, and a country like France, Spain, Germany consisted of lots of smaller states, and people were loyal to their state. So people now living in Germany didn't think of themselves as German, they thought of themselves as Prussian or Bavarian or whatever other region. From the late 1400s onwards, many of the countries went through wars of unification, beginning with Spain, Britain and France in the late 1400s, and right through to the 19th century. The Italian War of Unification ended about halfway through the 19th century as well. And Garibaldi was quoted as saying, "I've created Italy, I must now create the Italians." Because, like when France became unified, a very large portion of the people living in France couldn't speak French. And there's really just local dialects and local language from all the different regions. And it took a long time for them all to become fully unified. Germany was the last of the European nations to go through a war of unification. In the 7 Weeks' War of 1866, they beat Austria. So Austria from the Austro-Hungarian Empire was removed as a rival, made Germany stronger. So that in 1870, when Napoleon III declared war on Germany, the southern states of Germany also joined in, as they saw France as an aggressor. So the Northern Confederation of German states and the southern states joined together. That created a unified Germany after the 1870 Franco-Prussian War, and Germany was created. So nationalism would have been very strong, as Germany had only just been created, and France had lost two of their provinces. Austria-Hungary was afraid of their empire falling apart, as was the Ottoman Empire. So nationalism was very strong. It's actually shown by when Britain declared war. Massive numbers of people went to join up, because the propaganda had really built it up with crude anti-German propaganda. And so there was a nationalist fervour, which meant that everybody went into it not knowing what was coming, and all thinking it was going to be a quick war over by Christmas. No notion of what they were heading into.